The last technique that we want to talk about is one that we're all very excited about, that we talk to as many churches as we can about, because we really feel like it has the largest potential of impacting the online world, and that's what we call the digital missionary model. The digital missionary model is literally nothing new. It's nothing exciting. I wish it was, because then I could patent it or something, but it's not. It's the same thing that we should have been doing for 2,000 years in person. We're just doing it on the internet. It's essentially teaching our congregations to be able to engage and interact and share the gospel with people on the internet. I think there's an important thing worth saying here, right? If we always view the internet as a battlefield, all we're going to find are fights, right? But if we view the internet as a mission field, you will find the lost. This is a transition in thought that a lot of Christians haven't made yet. And it's a transition in thought that is required if we're going to be able to make an impact and find people online that need to hear Jesus. There are people online that are hurting. There are people online that need to hear the gospel. Arguing them is not going to fix that, right? We need to serve them. We need to show them the love of Jesus in a personal way. And the digital missionary model is exactly that. It's equipping our congregations, teaching them to see the online spaces that they view and they visit every day as opportunities to share the gospel, right? This is a model that we sort of stumbled into, that I personally stumbled into accidentally when I was exploring a new hobby. And it's a story I like to tell because it kind of lays out the points and the steps to becoming a digital missionary that we talk about churches all the time. So I'm going to share this story with you. It's a bit of a weird one, but I think it's interesting. So in late fall of 2019, I got into a hobby. And if you ask these guys, when I get into a hobby, it is never 50%. It is 100%. I hyper-focus like crazy. It doesn't matter what it is, all my time and energy. I dream about the hobby. You can ask my wife, I spend too much money on my hobbies. And this hobby was definitely probably the strangest hobby that I got into. I got into buying Nerf blasters off the shelf and opening them up and taking out the springs and the motors and the batteries and everything like that, and putting in other springs, motors, and batteries that have no reason being inside a children's toy, and closing that back up and putting holes in my drywall, right? The average Nerf gun shoots about 70 feet per second. My high score is about 330 feet per second, right? I don't know if you've ever been hit with a Nerf dart that's going the speed of an airsoft pellet, but it doesn't. You can ask Nick.
Nick probably still has a weld.
It doesn't feel good, but it's a lot of fun to shoot, right? And I was super into this hobby. I bought a 3D printer. I was making commissions for other people that were interested in the guns that I was making, right? Like I said, never 50%. And eventually, as fun as putting holes in my drywall is, you can ask my wife how much fun it was for her, right? I wanted to find other people to play with. And it turns out, after a bit of Googling, in the same way that there are airsoft clubs online, and there's paintball clubs that people get together and play, there are Nerf clubs where other man-children get together and shoot each other with Nerf guns, right? And there's about 50% of you that probably feel like this is the biggest waste of time and energy and money that you've ever heard. And there's the other 50% that sounds like, that sounds incredible, and I would like to do that. You're all correct. It absolutely is a waste of time and energy, but it's a lot of fun, right? And I found a group of people in the West Michigan area that had met online in a Discord group. They were trying to get a Nerf club together to start to have regular games. And I joined that group and just started talking to them. And now we bring it back to the digital missionary model. I had done the first step of becoming a digital missionary. I identified my audience. I just found a group of people that I had something in common with, and I started talking to them, right? That's step 2, identifying with your audience, right? Identify your audience, identify with your audience. I just started talking shop with them, right? I talked about the springs I was putting in the blaster. We talked about the filament we were putting in our 3D printers. I was not posting daily Bible verses into the lobby, right? I was not arguing politics with them. We were just talking about Nerf guns, a hobby that we had an interest in. And this was just weeks and months of spending this time to get to know them, to become a part of the community, to identify with them, right? And it's important that we spend a lot of time on there because the third step requires that we really understand our community. The third step is identifying what our audience needs, right? This does not have to be a spiritual thing. It often rarely is, right? In my case, for the Nerf gun community, they needed two things. They wanted a logo, because their current one was awful, and they needed a place to play a game. Something you may not have thought of. It's probably not a good idea for guys to run around in public parks with things that look like guns and start shooting each other, right? You want a private place to play those games. Fortunately, at the time, I had been a graphic designer for 10 years, and I worked at a church with recreational facilities that they occasionally rent out to community groups and whatnot. In a matter of about a week, I had designed them a new logo and rented out the facility for a game later that year. And all of a sudden, everything exploded. They were so excited, they made me a chairman on their Nerf board, which is apparently a thing that happens. I didn't know that was an option, right? And all of a sudden, these conversations started happening because they found out, they saw the address, looked it up, and they saw it was gonna be at a church, right? And then all of a sudden, these micro conversations, these questions started coming up. Can I come if I wear a leather jacket and ripped jeans, right? I was never confirmed as a child. Will I still be allowed to play? If I get shot and it hurts, can I curse? Or are you gonna kick me out, right? And these are silly little examples, but what was happening is people were all of a sudden naturally, because I had spent the time to become a part of their community, opening up about their perspectives on the gospel, about their perspectives on church, their past experiences at a church, right? All of a sudden, there was an opportunity to have a conversation about things. I didn't go in intending to do that, right? I just wanted to shoot people with my Nerf guns, right? But God God used me in that space to make a difference with those people because I just was a Christian around them, right? I was just showing the love of Jesus to them, meeting their needs, again, not spiritual needs, in a practical way, and the gift opened the way to the giver in that capacity, right? What would it look like if we took that model, identify your audience, identify with your audience, and identify what your audience needs, and taught every single one of our congregation members to view the online spaces that they visit every day, the weird little groups that, your pastor's not in. My pastor's not into Nerf guns, right? He couldn't have made that impact. What if we taught them to view those spaces as opportunities and equipped them with the tools necessary to evangelize them properly? There's a lot of evangelism techniques out there. A lot of them online are more likely to end up with you at the bottom of a comment section dog pile than actually changing anybody's minds. I know this works because I've watched it work multiple times since then, right? We've seen churches adopt this, and it's exciting to see the impact that it's having. I believe that if the church at large wants to make an impact online, it can't just be the church staff. It has to be the whole church. It has to be a vision thing from the senior pastor all the way down to the child, and understanding that the online world is an opportunity, not just a place to get in fights with people on the internet.